the border crisis at the southern part of the United States is a crisis. But this is not new. This is not something that was born out of thin air. This is the result of decades of failed U.S. foreign policy in Latin America, and it's not in the distant past.
You've got mail.
It's not in the distant past. Let me give you an example. The United States has a long history. United States government, and both parties, the Democrats and the Republicans, have joined in maintaining a policy that supports abusive regimes all over the world. The glaring examples being Saudi Arabia with its horrendous genocidal policies against their Yemeni neighbors, and also the policies of supporting for years, propping up and getting to power abusive tyrants in the Middle East. Saddam Hussein was a creation of the United States foreign policy apparatus. They created him. They propped him up to power and gave him the weapons, financed his war against Iran, the Iran-Iraq war, and they sold, the United States government sold weapons to both, to Iraq and to Iran through their Israeli contacts. So they were making money on both sides while everybody was massacring each other, So focusing on Central South America, Latin America. The United States has a long history. United States government. When I say United States, I say United States government. The vast majority of the United States citizens don't know what's going on outside of the United States. Shit, most of us did. We don't, unless you dig and dig from actual sources, reputable sources, not Fox News, not Newsmax, any of that fascist, demagogue infested trash. Unless you dig, you don't know what's happening outside of your fucking county, man. It's just, we were all busy. Look, I'm on my way to work after I just did a job, and we just work and pay our fucking bills and try to survive. That's all we're trying to do, most of us. People think I hate Republicans. I don't hate Republicans. As a matter of fact, I had a bunch of, Republican friends. Some of them, they're crazy Trump cult members. It's like, Jesus Christ, dude, come on. But, I don't. It breaks my heart. But if you go back to every horrendous, abusive, genocidal dictator in Latin America, including the Caribbean, Latin America, when America has insular America, which encompasses the islands off of the coast of the continent, which are part of the continent. So look at every dictator in the Caribbean, and you're going to see United States foreign policies, pulling the strings and financing and doing everything to protect those dictators, because for the simple reason that those dictators allow the United States companies and its foreign policy and its military apparatus to operate with impunity and do whatever the hell they wanted. The United States foreign policy is, as long, and it continues to be, as long as you let me do whatever the hell I want to do, I don't give a shit how many people you abuse, kill, whatever. They continue to do it. They did it with Fulgencio Batista, the dictator that was right before Fidel Castro. They did it with Leonidas Trujillo, the brutal dictator of the Dominican Republic. They did it with, every Caribbean dictator that has ever existed since the United States been in existence and seeking hegemony on the globe. So they did it with Salvador Allende, with the democratically elected democratic socialist president. I believe Chile, and they actually they financed, trained, and operated the military assault attack. They used U.S. CIA sponsored and trained personnel and military weapons to bomb the government, the palace. You can hear the Salvador Allende on the phone. He knew he heard the bombs and the planes attacking, saying, I know I'm going to get killed and stuff. So that was the United States who sponsored that, and they ordered that because the United States, the United States government, the so-called champions of democracy, they weren't having any of that. They didn't want anybody who opposed U.S. foreign fascist policy anywhere near the United States. Didn't matter if they were democratically elected. So they supported the 20-year brutal genocidal dictatorship of Augusto Pinochet in Chile. As long as Chile led the United States companies, and so they've done it with Argentina, with a military dictatorship in Argentina, in Brazil, with the latest being Bolsonaro, who Donald Trump praised. Bolsonaro was a brutal, extreme right-wing fascist, murderous dictator. He just got out of power. They just, got him out of power. So they've done it in Mexico, supporting the most corrupt, brutal regimes in Mexico. Panama, Noriega was propped up by the United States. He was buddies with them until he did go with the orders of the United States, and then then they went after him. So they've done it over and over and over. Now, when you do this, they did it in Nicaragua with the Iran-Contras, the Ronald Reagan-sponsored death squads who just tortured and murdered I don't know how many Nicaraguan and Salvadorian civilians to impose a non-democratically elected regime sponsored by the United States. They just tried to do it with Venezuela, try to impose a CIA-sponsored puppet called Guaido. I mean, it's just over and over and over and over. And if you continue to do that constantly, they've done it in El Salvador, they've done it everywhere. So if the United States government foreign policy does not change its MO, its paradigm, its way of operating soon, immediately, it's just going to get worse. Because what happens is when you support, let's just put it in terms of a neighborhood. If you do business, you got a neighbor's got a lot of land, and he owns a bunch of stuff, and he owns a business, and you're the guy who owns the local big business. You got a neighbor that, you know, he gives you good prices. He lets you, you know, use this land to park your vehicles and stuff. You know, you pay him and all that stuff. And, you know, he's got water and stuff that in his land that you use all that stuff, but you know that this neighbor beats the shit out of his wife, rapes his daughter. He runs the local underground prostitution rings, and he does all kind of fucked up shit, sells drugs to the neighbors and stuff. And, you know, are you going to sell them? And one of the things you sell are weapons. Are you going to sell them weapons and all that shit? Well, that's what we're doing. We're picking. What do you think he's going to do to the neighborhood? What do you think the neighborhood's going? What's going to happen to the people in the neighborhood? You know, that's pandemonium. So it's hell everywhere. So they're going to seek a place out. They're going to run to you because you're the guy who's got, you know, you don't do any of that shit to your people, to your employees or anything like that. So they're going to come to you seeking refuge because this guy that you're selling weapons to and that you're sending a bunch of military aid and, you know, doing business with, he's fucking up his neighborhood. So that neighborhood is going to come to you, right? Now, if people in your neighborhood that are rich people, let's say the Sackler family, the ones who own Purdue Pharma, who are the ones, they're the real drug cartel, who got half of your people hooked on prescription drugs, and now they can't get it because their laws tightened up, but you got your entire population hooked up on Purdue Pharma. You know, one of your buddies that does business in your neighborhood, no, he can't, you know, his pills, which are legal, can't be gotten unless you got $30 to pay per pill. You know, now comes your other neighbors, the drug dealers that he's got. They're the, you know, who do you think your people that are hooked on the pills from Sackler family are going to go to? You're going to go down underground and get $5 little baggies from the guy next door, right? Because they're hooked. It doesn't matter who you are. Now, why are those people? Now you got a problem in your area, in your neighborhood, because you exploit the shit out of your neighbors, and you know they all work for you, but you pay them shit money. You pay them shit money. You don't give them. You're the one who handles all the money, and then you pay them shit money. You let the religious people in the neighborhood operate without paying the rent, taxes, and, you know, tell everybody vote for a piece of shit candidate that's got rape accusations and has got 3,500 fucking, you know, lawsuits against him. And then the people can't afford shit because one sector of your neighborhood, one guy, the Republican guys, says, no, we got to let business regulate itself, and they give the insurance company everything they want, and now they're charging 400% of what they charged last year to insure your house, and there's no protection, rent control, so now the rent can go up as high as whenever the fuck they want without protect. If the contract is up, you were paying $1,500, now it's $3,000 because the governor or one of the guys, the leaders in your neighborhood said no, now it's legal to have rent controls. Okay, so now that there's so much stress, and now you let the guys that you pay for security beat up the black people and the Puerto Rican people like me, and the minorities beat them up and shoot them, and nothing happens to them, and then you have an entire community that's fucked up psychologically and lives in fear, and they can't afford shit. So the easiest thing to look for is to look for an escape. So you see where I'm going with this? They go pop a pill, drink a beer, smoke a joint, something, because they don't want to feel the pressure that they got on them. They just buried their daughter, their 17-year-old daughter, because she popped a pill and it had fentanyl and it killed her. And they want to blame the Mexican. There's a guy say, hey, see, that was the Mexican. While at the same time, the Mexican guy that crossed the border to pick your tomatoes, yeah, they're blaming him. While the truth is that the Sackler family created the availability and hooked up the entire fucking neighborhood. And not one of the Sackler people went to jail. Yeah, yet everybody else goes to jail. They're still operating just fine, you know. The OxyContin manufacturers who started this epidemic, this massacre, 110,000 humans per year. And now what you have is an empire of suffering, the empire of desperation, because there's so much misery in the streets caused by predatory capitalism. When you don't have a safety net that prioritizes the people, it's taken 4 decades of Reaganomics, which is the trickle down, the cruel lie of sucking everything from the workers and giving it to the rich and the corporations. And now we have one human that's worth almost $300 billion, while the rest of us are starving and just pumping riches up to the people at the top. And we have an entire party giving everything that ruling class and corporation wants. They don't need that. No one needs $300 billion. Shit, no one needs $1 billion. No one. You know? But hey, when we could be using, and then they give them the tax free, they just gave them $2 trillion and then blame the other party for it after one dude, the guy who's got 91, you know, the criminal who ordered his cult to attack the U.S. Capitol to steal the U.S. election and had nuclear secrets in front of his shitter, and refused to give him back after a year and a half of the Justice Department. They say, hey, we need that shit. That's our shit. That's not your shit. And then him showing it to his buddies at Mar-a-Lago. So when you got an entire party that racked up in 4 years $8 trillion worth of giveaways to the rich, and then that same party is now accusing this party, who's trying to actually rein in, doing something right for a change, rein in that shit, accusing them of the deficit that they created. See, when you have that dysfunction in an entire nation, when you have taken the educational system and gutted it like the Republican Party has done, Ronald Reagan, you know, dismantled the mental health apparatus, when you take away all that safety net from people, now they're trying to get food from babies, away from babies, to give it to the rich. And then they've always tried that. Always, the right wing always does that. And somehow they're the pro-family. I never understood that. How stupid can you be? So when you take 40 years of taking the education department and destroying it, like they're doing, and they're kicked it into overdrive, removing the history of my Native American and black ancestors, my African ancestors' history from the books, so that the kids don't know how this actually came to be. And when you create a population that's stupid, that's uneducated, it's easy to tell them that you're a good person when you're actually a piece of shit like Donald Trump. And when you force feed them this religious shit, if I can get you to believe that a guy walked on water and rose from the dead and was born out of a virgin, which is a copy of the Egyptian mythology, the character's name was Horus. That's where the Jesus mythology came from. And when you can convince somebody that there's a guy that walks on water, that rose from the dead, and that you can communicate with this character through make-believe brain conversations, silent conversations, with this imaginary character, you can get them to believe anything. So this is where we're at. We're in a misery factory that consumes, I want to say, 80% of the dope that's produced on the planet. Why? Because we're in misery. It's misery. So when we finance through our consumption, we finance, and through our foreign policy as a government, horrendous regimes, and instead of giving, and then we give Mexico, what is it, 300 million a year in weapons to fight. Think about it. We finance war everywhere. We got 660 something military facilities across the globe. What do you think is going to happen if you don't finance education, infrastructure, healthcare, all of that, and all you do is finance war? What do you think is going to happen? You're going to create an entire herd of humans running from that, and we cost that. We are financing. Right now, there are 108.4 million humans running for their lives on the planet from conflict, violence. We are financing that. So we got to stop that. We need more books. We need more education. We need more infrastructure, water, food, schools, hospitals, sewers, water pipelines, solar farms, energy. If we don't start financing that all over the globe, we're going to collapse society. We're going to collapse. It's already collapsed. Predatory capitalism has collapsed a long time ago. If it wasn't because of the gargantuan injection of corporate socialism that and social for the people too, that the United States government invested in to keep the people afloat during the pandemic, we would have had about 2 million more deaths, and everything would have collapsed because nobody could afford to stay home. They had to go and risk their life to go work. So we need to take a look at foreign policy and change. Instead of financing, and change here too. Take care of the people. Stop this handout, this corporate welfare shit. Welfare for the people, not the corporations. Okay? If we don't stop, we're fucked. You think this is bad? This is just the sequel to the COVID. The disruption of the supply lines was so abrupt, and it had to be. If not, we would have 50 million more dead people on the planet if we didn't hunker down and wait for the incubation period to go away because it would have transmissions have been way higher. It would have been way worse of a catastrophe. But that disruption caused disruption on social networks all across the globe, especially in Latin America, where it's already stretched out misery. People are just subsisting day to day, one plate of food at a time if you're lucky. That's how people live. And you disrupt the supply chain. People don't know how to plant stuff in a garden anymore. Everybody goes to the supermarket. And those who do, they don't have land to do it at. Okay? Because the big corporation control the land, the seeds, everything. So if we're depending on those corporations, which shouldn't be like that. It should be that everybody gets, a place, even if it's not yours, have communal, gardens and stuff. In case shit hits the fan, we can go and grab a, fruit or something to eat, just put something in our stomach, But they call that socialism. Call it whatever the fuck you want. The reality is, if we don't move towards a more egalitarian, more system of where we all think of ourselves as one species and stop thinking of ourselves as enemies and thinking of ourselves and talking about ourselves like like the Republicans are talking about my fellow Latin Americans like invaders. Are you fucking kidding me? You're the descendant of European Christians, genocidal, land-thieving invaders. That's what they are. Everybody who doesn't have Native American blood is that. And I have blood from European Christians and Native Americans and Africans. So some of my ancestors invaded my other ancestors, raped their women, massacred them, and stole their land. And here I am. That's the truth. If we don't stop thinking of ourselves as all against each other, we will collapse. That's how fragile the market economy is. So it's time to change the paradigm and start treating our neighbors as good neighbors, being nice to them, helping them out, instead of giving them fucking weapons everywhere to fight each other. That's why China is being successful as a brutal dictatorship that they are, and abusive to their own citizens. When it comes to foreign policy, they got something we can learn from. They're going everywhere in Africa offering schools. We'll build your roads, we'll build your hospitals, we'll build whatever you need to get your people out of misery. Something that the Europeans never did. Always exploiting, always killing, always stealing. So we got something to learn on that respect from the Chinese foreign policy. So it's time to change, man. It's time to change.